Hello everybody, so this is going to be my January wrap-up and then also sort of a talk about some of my reading habits. I hadn't initially planned on doing a wrap-up video, but it came about, and the whole discussion I'm going to have afterwards came about because of a conversation I had. So my mum actually asked me probably about a few days before the end of January, she asked me, she wondered how many books I actually read. And I said, well, I don't really count. I just sort of read and go. And she compared me in a way to my maternal grandfather. Her father said, he probably reads about a book a week. I wonder if you read as many as that. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? I don't really count. She goes, I'd really like to know. So would you mind going and trying to count? And I was like, well, I have a Goodreads. I can go and count. Come, February 1st, I looked at all the books I'd completed in January. I read a total of 25 books and one novella. So does that make it like 25.5? So yeah, that happened. And I'm sure all of you are saying, 25, that's a lot of books. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not. I'm not going to be like, 25, that's nothing. It's just, it's 25 books, and I kind of didn't even think about that while I was reading. So now, let me go into sort of how I read in a way. I am apparently a quick reader. I never really considered myself that fast. I thought I was just sort of average. Until when I was a kid, especially when I would read the Harry Potter series, which I used to probably finish in record time when I'd get those. My parents kind of kept frequently mentioning to me, you read really fast. I'd be like, okay, sure, no, yes, I don't know. Again, I never really thought about it. So then, as I went into, kind of high school and college, I conducted an experiment. Because I actually wanted to know how fast I read. So I took copies of several different books. They were different genres, different age ranges, and different typefaces, different actual physical size. Each of those books I read for 1 hour and then looked at the starting page and looked at the page that I ended up in after that hour. And together I averaged them. So in general, between those, I average somewhere around about 100 pages an hour when I read casually. I'm not exactly sure if that's particularly fast or particularly slow, but that's my average. Now yes, for some books I'll read fast and for some books I'll read even slower. It just sort of depends on a book-to-book basis. But in terms of averages, I'm going to read about 100 pages an hour. With that in mind, I'm going to give you an example of kind of how I read. On January 31st, I started a book called Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. I read through the night until I basically passed out. So when I woke up on February 1st at around 8 o'clock in the morning, I went downstairs, made myself coffee, kind of got ready, and I had the book in my hand, but I wasn't reading. I didn't start reading it till about 8:30. I probably had about 150 to 200 pages left. So by around, and it was a bit of a faster read, so by around 9:30 I finished Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge and immediately just moved on to another book. I picked up Cinder by Marissa Meyer. Now, I had work that day. I was going to work late in the afternoon at about 3 p.m. Between about 10 o'clock when I started, around 10 o'clock when I sort of started Cinder, and I stopped in the middle of it and then picked it up again because I was doing other things. And about 1:30, 2 p.m. when I started getting ready for work, I'd already finished Cinder. Yeah, that happened. If I have the time and I'm reading uninterrupted, I'm just going to keep going. That leads me into another habit. And this doesn't just apply to series, though it's best just applied to series. For example, when I read the Across the Universe trilogy by Beth Revis, all 3 of those books were published. So I read Across the Universe. The moment I hit the end of Across the Universe and gave it my star rating, I went and bought A Million Suns and then began reading it. The same thing happened after I finished A Million Suns and moved on to Shades of Earth. So in the span of about 2 days, because I was working, I finished 3 books because I just didn't stop. Another thing that's important to note is that my Kindle is the Kindle 3G Touch. It was right before they came out with the Paperwhite, so it doesn't have a backlight, but it does have text-to-speech. So if I don't have the audiobook of the particular novel I'm reading, I can have a monotone robot voice read it to me while I'm doing something else. Which, it's not a professional reader, but I can understand it. So oftentimes when I'm doing something else, and if it's a book that's on my Kindle, I will just turn on text-to-speech and have it read while I do things. That's how I can also get through books really quickly when I'm not necessarily sitting reading. But yeah, I just sort of wanted to talk about that a little because of the fact I was about to tell you I read 25 books, and that's going to seem insane, but that's just sort of how I read. I'm a bit of a juggernaut. Once I start, it's really hard to make me stop. But I think that will be it for me tonight, you guys. So until next time, cheers.